throw it away. Or you can still use it, you can recycle it by, you could take the lid off and use it as a flower pot in the garden. Not quite the original purpose, but there's still some purpose. So, I think when you look at the unification movement, in order for it to be a capital, to fulfill its original purpose, meaning for the unification movement to prosper, I believe we need to honor and to practice the original vision given to Father Moon by God, and to focus on the central message that we are all one family under God. On the other hand, if we as a movement become self-absorbed or denominational, we will end up like a flower pot in the garden. So, as for the Women's Federation for World Peace here in Ireland, I must say, since taking it on in 2011, God has led me into the direction of focusing our efforts in the area of interfaith. So with God's guidance, and also based on the foundation of, I must definitely credit Halvid's work with the Universal Peace Federation, I also was introduced to some of the contacts, and there was really very important foundation that I also could build upon with the Women's Federation for World Peace, like for example, Brother Michael Murray from the Lantern Center, Dr. Puri, that through Michael I got to meet Joan Murray, and the Lantern Center became a very important partner with the Women's Federation, and Dr. Puri, the six, I got to, their daughters got involved. So it's really fantastic and very, very important, and I really want to credit Halvid for that, But I also felt very much God's blessing and God's guidance, And Women's Federation became, like I say, I felt very much called to focus on the area of interfaith, which was really very much calling. That was definitely not something I planned like 10 years ago or something. It's just turned out to be that way, the way the contacts happened and the way God guided me, it ended up being interfaith from the women's perspective. Women's Federation became very much involved in the interfaith community here in Ireland. However, after about 3 years, I felt strongly that God wanted me to expand and venture out further. And this was very much in line with Father Moon's instructions to the Women's Federation leader shortly before he passed away. Actually, in July 2012, 16th of July 2012, only 6 weeks before his accession, he inaugurated the Able Women's UN. Ida also mentioned, the concern about the UN, the United Nations, and Father Moon has been always very supportive and interested in the United Nations, and has seen it as a very important tool that God is working through to bring peace. But the United Nations has reached its limit, and so Father Moon, just before he passed away, he inaugurated this Able Women's UN also as another branch to promote the original goals, the original vision of the United Nations. So, but again, he took it to another level from the Women's Federation. He stepped it up and said we need to create the Able Women's UN. That's the way he called it at the time, initially. Okay, so it was later renamed. It was later because of practical reasons, actually. Because of practical reasons, it was renamed into the Global Women's Peace Network, GWPN. Okay, but at the original time of the original founding, it was the Able Women's UN. And this was a very significant event and speech in which he empowered and encouraged unificationists to look beyond ourselves and to network with other like-minded people, leaders, and organizations. So I want to read you out a brief excerpt of this historic speech, because I feel it really nails it, and it's really the point, and that was a very strong calling point for me in my work here in Ireland. So this is just a brief excerpt, okay? The work for world peace, Women's Federation for World Peace, has carried out until now, should not remain at its current stage, It should be expanded and developed to the next stage so that it can work together in solidarity and cooperation with women leaders and NGOs from all parts of the world, and strive to follow the path of the establishment of the ultimate world of peace. In order to do that, Women's Federation for World Peace should go beyond the level of the women's NGO and bring together the governments, organizations and individuals across the world and march forward. The establishment of a great organization under the name Able Women UN is absolutely necessary to bring this about, and it is in fact the absolute decree of God's providence. As we usher in such a cosmically historic and revolutionary era of changes, my wife and I solemnly declare the inauguration of the Able Women UN. We urge all women in the world who make up half of its population to recognize their historic mission as stated above and to expand their work to all parts of the globe. So based on Father Moon's very clear words, very clear to all of us, and well, it was addressed to the Women's Federation leaders, but of course to all the educationists and women leaders in particular, you know, an encouragement to go beyond ourselves, to not just focus on developing our own organization, but instead to go out there, go beyond, break down the barriers, go beyond ourselves, and network, and just focus on, you know, coming together under the umbrella of peace for the sake of peace. And this is what Father Moon's focus and efforts have always been, even with the International Peace Highway, for example, or many efforts and initiatives he created. It's always, even the marriage blessing, it's always about breaking down the barriers, going beyond ourselves, and networking and working with the seemingly impossible. Even loving your enemy, even like how Father Moon embraced and forgave Kim and Sang, in the same way expected from the couples that he married, you know, Japanese and Korean, or you name it, all the enemy constellations, they were matched together, they were expected, they were asked to go beyond themselves and to love the seemingly impossible, and to love their enemy, you know, which seems impossible. But for the sake of and in the name of breaking down the barriers, you know, unless we can overcome ourselves and go beyond ourselves, it's not going to happen. It's not going to. We have to break down. And it's spiritually, there are so many walls and barriers, and Father Moon was always so serious about breaking down the barriers. And that's why also when it comes to the area of interfaith, I don't know how many denominations there are in Christianity alone. And then look at all the other religions, and look at Islam now. You know, oh my gosh, what's going on in the world? You know, and it's everybody is just stuck in their own little corner, you know, and thinks they have it all figured out. But ultimately, what we really need to do to bring the world to peace is to break down the barriers, and it requires sacrificing ourselves. And even like Father Moon said in the beginning in 1954, if I have to take down the sign, I will do that. I didn't even want to put up the sign, you know. So this is really, and this is his original vision. This is his original passion, and this is the point about all of these initiatives that he created, whether it's the International Peace Highway, you know, which requires for all the nations in the world, you know, which are, you know, slaughtering each other at the moment, for them to work together on a project, to create a project, or whether it's to match, you know, enemy nations together in marriage, you know, or for Muslims, Christians, and Jews to come together peacefully. It's required to go beyond ourselves in order to break down the barriers. And this is the original vision, you know. So,